much of that is caused by unskillful actions.
Mm.
Like I'm curious about discerning the difference between just like monkey mind kind of chewing on itself for no reason versus like I'm experiencing unhealthy or healthy shame. And a lot of it is like work stuff. Yeah, I could say more, but I'm curious what comes up for you.
Right. Well, I think I heard you asking there. How much of this monkey mind, this mental activity, is about actually feeling the consequences of things that I've done that day, versus just maybe the pattern that I was speaking to of that I've just got to punish myself, or like I should just feel remorse about this or that action. Is that right?
I guess it's the difference between shame, like healthy shame, and the like restlessness
and restlessness.
Anxiety.
I guess I'm having trouble teasing them apart. Yeah. For me, they're very close. It is very, very difficult, I've found, to really adhere to these precepts and live in the world. It's extremely difficult. And Maple is included in the world in that statement. As much as we in our community strive to live by these precepts, and it is a more of a monastic environment than much of the world, it is still extremely difficult. During the times when I have sort of coming out of retreat, that very rarefied environment where the entirety of the place is like set up to make it possible to practice without having to transgress the precepts. There's really no possibility of transgressing the precepts. Coming out of that and then coming back into the world is extremely jarring, and keeping up the meditation practice, sitting for an hour in the morning and the evenings, or however long I was able to, I noticed it was extremely difficult. My mind was just all of a sudden filled back up, and just, we had to, after my first retreat, it was during the middle of the winter, and we came out, my ride, his car had gotten a flat tire, and that morning it was something like 20 degrees Fahrenheit outside, and so we had to somehow change a tire with no gloves, and get the donut onto it, and then drive 50 miles to a Walmart. Coming out of a 10-day silent meditation retreat, this was a little bit jarring. And I noticed as I sat that night after coming home that all of the tranquility and all of the calm and all of the freedom that I had experienced in that 10 days was just gone. And all of a sudden, all of these images of products and people and worries had just flooded back in. But I noticed that if I stuck with it over time, over the weeks and months, still doing my best to adhere to the precepts, even though I would sit down like that evening and be like, oh, I lied about that. Oh, like, I definitely shouldn't have eaten that bar of chocolate. That was definitely intoxication. Oh, Stephen. Oh, boy. Or like, my very presence, in this house, taking something that is not given, all these things I would rolling around in my head. As it went on over time, I found it easier and easier to see what I was kind of blowing out of proportion versus what was actually that day some conscious choice I had made. For instance, to just seeing finally, oh, this conversation with this person, where I was not completely truthful, actually led to this thing that they now think about me, like led them to seeing me in this way, or led to all of this confusion. And it would have just been better if I didn't do that. Okay, tomorrow I'm still going to see that person. I'm going to be clearer with them. And then I'm going to meditate again and see what comes up. Oh, okay. It was just more harmonious when I did it the other way. Oh, well, maybe I should just keep doing that. Maybe I should, okay, let me just completely abstain from the chocolate for a week. All right, well, that feels a little bit better. And then it was a matter of running experiments. And I can't say for certain which one of your thoughts, I wouldn't be able to say which one of your thoughts is the oh, I'm such a bad person, I can't adhere to these precepts, this is just the worst, it's usually the thinking about the thinking about the thing that becomes the issue. But holding that resolution constantly, that I'm in an environment where I know I'm intending to do these things, it's actually worth noting here that in the official Buddhist monastic code, if one does not intend consciously to transgress a precept, if I accidentally step on a mosquito, right, or an ant or something, if I accidentally do that and I realize that I have not actually broken my commitment to refrain from killing living beings, because I did not hold the intention in my mind to kill that ant and then take I have the mental commitment to it, and then I make that into a bodily action that executes it. If I have not done that, that is not actually transgressing. That's not. If I don't realize that I'm lying to a person or that they're misunderstanding me, I have not actually intentionally deceived them. This is a very important distinction to make. It is the mind that intends to do the thing, intends to actually kill and justifies it, intends to actually lie and justifies it, intends to actually steal and justify it, that leads to the remorse, because that disharmony just cannot live in the mind. But the degree to which I self-flagellate for just the things that I didn't know is the degree to which I'm just creating suffering for myself, and beat myself up for mistakes that I made years ago that I cannot change, I cannot undo. That is a tremendous act of ill will toward myself. That is a tremendous act of in a way, transgression of the precept. I'm basically trying to kill myself with that. It is extremely harmful, and I, to the extent that I can, do not want to do that. And the extent to which I recognize and allow myself to see that I have actually lived in alignment with my commitments, and see clearly where I could not have done otherwise, and did not intend to transgress but did, and love myself around that, then in the concentration, in the meditation, the mind tends to be a little bit calmer, and the monkeys don't tend to chatter as much. That has been my experience. Yes, Jeffrey.
I very much enjoyed your talk, especially the way that you're so, instead of professional Buddhist, you're confessional. And you share your own confessions of these transgressions of the noble principles. I was always struck myself with what you were just describing, both of you, how we try to be good and try to do whatever we think is right, but often fail. And how circumstantial usually there's a situation where we're intending, but we get association, I've been told, is 90% of the cultivation of harmlessness, and that is very easy and natural, as you were describing. I've also experienced this when you're in a community where everybody's has that aspiration and it's genuine.
Mm-hmm.
Then all the trying and failing is sort of just maturing that you understand that to be human is to make errors.
Yes.
It's not unusual for us to try and not succeed at first.
Yeah.
And then I also really appreciate the whole idea that the descriptions of your upbringing and with this punishment thing, that the error in living, the mistakes we make, are their own punishment. And if you can't see that, any kind of people telling you, it's double-headed. You know, you can't have a whole motive. It's not your motive. It's what they're shaming you to do. And if anybody has ever experienced someone else shaming them, and if they're at all innocent in any naive way, it's usually crippling, because the innocence wants to respect, and it actually feels I'm human, I can make mistakes, and damn it, he's right. And how can I stop this? But once you're shamed and you try to stop by your own willpower, I've been taught that, as in the story of the Christians and the Jews, that, you know, you can get 10 commandments, but can you fulfill them? And when a master of the heart who knows how to inculcate the motive gracefully, where it's natural, because they have the motive already of love. And morality has never been actually defined, as far as I know, in all of philosophy. But then everybody knows in their conscience that you can't really rationalize, but you'll see a lot of people, and courts and law, and, you know, the Torah, well, I guess we can eat this, I guess we can't eat that. The circumstantial complications of trying to nail it down, genetic power, you know, the modern world is full of ethical problems. And but all of religion, as far as I know, is always taught that if you love your source and love life with all your heart, soul, and might, then you're going to love your neighbor as yourself also, and then all those commandments are automatically fulfilled without trying artificially to pull yourself up by your bootstraps. It never really works, and then you get shameful about yourself, and that's what feeds the monkey mind, you know? And the neurosis, we're only as sick as the shame that binds our heart. A free heart just naturally is virtuous. And so freedom, liberty, and, you know, do justice, love kindness, walk humbly before all of you can hear all the platitudes calling you to that. But if you don't have good association, if your mom didn't love you, you know, if you didn't feel love of life when you were innocent, you have to grow through that. And many people become great realized beings because they had a hard beginning. And I think you might be one of those guys. And it's incredible how the human spirit is naturally good when it's loved. And when I say love, I want it to, you know, it's unconditional. The mother's love for the child is as unconditional as worldly love can get, because it's her own self in an obvious, helpless way. And so I see the Buddha and all the men teachers as underneath their mothers, and that those are the real teachers that manage to raise a son like that. And I vote for women to take over all the power in the world, who are natural nurturing beings. And that's my ballot box confessional. Thank you. Please don't let me take up too much of your time.
Thank you, Jeffrey.
I have something to share, if you don't mind.
Yes. What's your name?
My name's Jared.
Jared. Welcome. Welcome.
I would consider myself, the words that I would use is a light worker. This
Uh-huh.
terminology. Are you familiar with it? I'm familiar with the study of Reiki.
Oh, yes.
Is my preferred method. At least I haven't really experienced monastic church, so I'm not really 100% on it. But when it comes to neuroses, I actually had a discovery in my own meditation about a week ago that hopefully I'll share. Maybe it will help you guys. What I discovered is in my chakra alignments that each chakra was displaced by one up.
Oh.
So I had my brain in my divinity. I had my communication in my brain. I had my heart in my communication. I had my will in my heart. I had my guilt in my will, and I didn't have a base. And so what I discovered is if I could just drop those and get the communication out of my head and intuit with my head and communicate with my throat, love with my heart, will with my sacral, then the chatter goes away.
Yeah.
So that is, I just figured that was something I'd like to share with you guys.
Thank you.
Neuroses and a possible fix.
Thank you so much for sharing this. It very much resonates with my experience, and it's in my own experience the way that understanding has come to me is through the focus on the posture of the body. How much love I put into just noticing the subtle ways my neuroses are causing me to like try to hold my body, or the story I tell about like what's okay to feel inside. So much affect my alignment as you're putting it, I think. And it's like if I'm able to actually breathe in a way that lets all of those pieces click into the right place, right? And in relation to each other. And it's hard to put words to, as you know. It's a very somatic thing, you know. It's
There's a philosopher, his name is David Hume.
Oh yeah.
And he would describe what you're describing as an impression.
Sure.
That it's a soul's impression.
Yes.
Ideas are merely reflected impressions.
Yes.
Inside of our DNA that was already written.
Yes, absolutely.
So,
Street smarts versus book smarts, kind of thing.
yes.
And that has just had to build up over a lot of time. The body was a very scary place for me to go, given my upbringing and given the predominance of punishing circumstances that I found myself in.
You haven't gotten into quite the specifics of what you went through. I have, in my own research, I've learned the capabilities of human beings. So, we also have broken out of our own ancestral cycles.
Yeah.
And so if you have the ability to do that, I mean, congratulations. It's one of the most difficult things.
Yes. And I have found as well one of the most rewarding. I've come from also, there were many unfortunate circumstances in my childhood, but also many things that I think, as Jeffrey was speaking to, precisely set me up to follow the path to the extent that I have, to really throw myself into this. This has now become my center of gravity. And one of them is, I played video games growing up. And those were a way of engaging the world that I knew explicitly there was something rooting for me in this. It actually wanted me to be able to accomplish or achieve or complete this, and in a way was unconditionally loving me. My parents did their darndest. Like they absolutely did their best. And yet the world that I grew up in just kind of inherently is a punishing world. And we are asked to do and be things and be many ways that are just absolutely horrendous and really out of alignment and in disharmony. And I found that when I really tuned into those circumstances where people had created an environment that was meant for me to be able to feel completely empowered and loved in, I had a way of getting back into this. And it was actually in coming to that meditation retreat, I saw the whole thing as a video game. And I was like, the game is sit with your feelings, actually feel everything, don't run away, and the reward is a love and peace that you cannot possibly imagine. But don't take our word for it. Just play a few levels and see what happens. And with the first level, with the first taste of that, I felt a little bit of it. And enough for me to come back and okay, how about a little bit more? And then a little bit more, and then a little bit more, and then just the snowball started rolling. And I was able to come back out of it and see that many, many, many people have discovered these ways and call them by many, many, many different names. And that there is just a right way to do this whole life humaning thing. And so I may not always get it right, but I strive to every day. And stories like yours, Jared,
Yes.
encourage me greatly.
Great.
So I'm very glad you were here tonight.